Welcome. You're listening to the Malcontent News Russia-Ukraine War podcast, the show that cuts through the fog of war and updates you about the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts.
Hello, I'm Marina Yevshan, your host of the Russia-Ukraine War Report podcast, and today is July the 25th, 2024. It has been 3,831 days since Russia started covert military operations in Crimea, 10 years and 155 days since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war, and 2 years and 152 days since Russia expanded its war of aggression. During the podcast, you will find the Russia-Ukraine war map helpful to visualize the areas discussed. There is a link in the podcast description. The Russia-Ukraine war report is compiled by our team from around the world. Today's report includes information from our direct contacts and journalists in Ukraine, the Russian Ministry of Defense, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine morning reports, operational commands north, south and east of Ukraine, open source intelligence, our in-house team of analysts and geospatial experts, and pro-Ukrainian and pro-Russian bloggers and social media channels with a track record of trying to be accurate. We have one mission, the truth, because the truth matters. Here is my daily assessment. There are only small changes from yesterday, so if you skip ahead, I won't mind. I won't even know. 1. Russian losses of armor, mobility and personnel are unsustainable even for Moscow. 2. Russia will continue to make tactical gains during its current offensive, but the lack of strategy, low troop morale, poor battlefield medicine, corruption, and degraded logistics make it highly unlikely that Russian forces will be able to exploit any new breaches in 2024. 3. We maintain the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine remains unsuccessful in de-Sovietizing its field commanders and meeting its obligations to properly train new troops, resulting in repeated preventable battlefield errors. 4. Continued delays in the delivery of promised military hardware, munitions and funding continue to prevent the Ukrainian armed forces from reaching their full combat potential. 5. We maintain that without a solution to restore air parity and slow the use of Russian glide bombs, Ukrainian troops will continue to be forced to withdraw, as Russia destroys every defensible position and location. 6. Russian drone strikes in Romania for the second day in a row show that the policy of escalation management implemented by the NATO alliance and the United States, and to a smaller extent Germany, is a failure, and Russia will continue to set conditions for kinetic acts of aggression in Europe and test NATO's response. 7. Russia will continue to commit increasingly worse violations of international humanitarian law until international watchdogs and Ukraine's allies take a unified and firm stance. 8. We maintain the world is caught in the mutually assured destruction instability paradox. 9. Russia's sustained attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, which has destroyed over 80% of its combined thermal and power plant capacity, is a continuation of Russian crimes against humanity that started in October 2022, as outlined in 4 arrest warrants issued by the International Criminal Court. 10. The attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure have incrementally increased the chance of an intentional nuclear accident at multiple nuclear facilities in Ukraine. Russia doesn't stop targeting civilians and civilian infrastructure with glide bombs, drones and missiles. Over the last 24 hours, Russia launched 38 Shahed-136 one-way drones that mostly targeted the Odessa and Kyiv regions, and 4 Iskander-M short-range ballistic missiles. Ukrainian air defense and electronic warfare downed 25 UAVs. The Ukrainian Air Force reported that 3 Shahed-136 drones entered Romanian airspace and flew deep enough into the NATO alliance nation that they could no longer be tracked. The General Inspectorate for Emergency Situations of Romania issued an air raid alert for the northern area of Tulcea County, warning residents there could be falling debris. After the air raid, a video was released showing a crash site in Romania from one of the drones, although it is unclear if this is from the July the 24th or the 25th airspace violation. the Ministry of National Defense of Romania confirmed that during Tuesday's attack on the Odessa region port of Izmail, 2 Romanian Air Force F-16 fighter planes were scrambled from Borcea Air Base to monitor the situation. Local residents in the area of Plauru reported up to 3 drones striking Romanian territory and minor damage to homes. On Thursday morning, Romanian military officials confirmed that Shahed 136 debris was found in Plauru. It was not clarified if this was from the July the 24th or July the 25th attack. On Wednesday, Russian attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure killed at least 4 and wounded 32. Drones targeted the Odessa region port of Izmail again, destroying an administrative building. 2 people were wounded when drone debris hit their house, with 1 in hospital. In the Kharkiv Oblast, Lozova was hit by an Iskander-M missile, destroying an infrastructure facility. 3 civilians were killed and 6 wounded. 2 more Russian SRBMs hit a non-military industrial facility in the city of Kharkiv. An hour later, minutes after emergency responders had left the scene, a 3rd missile with cluster munitions struck the site in an apparent double-tap attack. 6 civilians who were outdoors and away from the original strike were wounded by shrapnel. The intentional targeting of rescue personnel and the use of cluster munitions in populated civilian areas are violations of international humanitarian law. The VKS, that's the Russian Aerospace Forces, also bombed the city. Igor Terehov, the mayor of Kharkiv, said that the bombs landed in a residential area near the city center. Now for today's action report summary. On Wednesday, Russia carried out 149 assaults. Through July the 24th, the 7-day moving average for daily attacks was unchanged and remains below the linear trend line. The VKS carried out 58 airstrikes, dropping 79 bombs on civilian and military targets. Russian ground units carried out over 4,800 fire missions with tubed and barrel artillery. Now let's talk about what happened on the battlefield, and this would be a good time to open up our Russia-Ukraine war map. Ready? Here we go. Starting in the Kharkiv Oblast, we begin in the Lipti-Vovchansk area of operation, or AO. Fighting continued in Vovchansk, where the VKS conducted multiple airstrikes. Russian forces tried to advance in the direction of Tykhe without success. Fighting also continued in the northern parts of Hlyboka, with no significant change in the situation. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, or GSAFU, reported fighting in the border village of Sotnitsky Kozachok. In our assessment, this is related to the July the 24th video of Ukrainian troops attacked by artillery. Russia claims it hit a Ukrainian heavy equipment repair depot in the Kharkiv region, striking the facility with an Iskander-M SRBM. In the Kupiansk AO, fighting continued near Sinkivka and northeast of Petropavlivka. In the Svatove AO of the Luhansk Oblast, Russian assaults east of Stelmachivka were repulsed. And in the Kremenna AO, Russian forces conducted assaults east of Makiyivka, in the direction of Nevske and in the Serebryansky forest. Now let's talk about the Donbass and the northeastern part of the Donetsk Oblast. In the Siversk AO, Russian assaults on Verkhnyokamyensk from Zolotarivka and in the direction of Ivanodarivka were repulsed. In the Soledar AO, GSFU reported that a Russian assault in the direction of Novomarkove failed. There were no changes in the Kostantinivka AO. Fighting continued in the area of Kalinivka, the western edge of the canal district of Chasiv Yar, and near the Novy microdistrict. Russian forces continued their assaults in the Toretsk-New York AO, where Ukrainian forces continued to hold their defensive lines. Fighting was confined to Pivnichne and New York. In Southwestern Donetsk Oblast, Russian forces carried out 38 assaults in the Pokrovskoye. Heavy fighting was reported on the outskirts of Vozdvizhenka and the area of Novoalexandrivka. The Khortytsia Operational Strategic Group reported that, quote, measures are being taken to push the Russians back from progress, and elements of the 31st Motor Infantry Brigade were conducting, quote, defensive battles in the area of responsibility. GSAFU reported that Russian forces were attacking Vovcha. Heavy fighting continued in Novoselivka-Persha with no change in the situation, and Russian forces remained stuck between Netailova and Karlivka. The heaviest fighting was in the Vuhledar, where Russian forces carried out 45 assaults. Fighting continued in Krasnohorivka, the center of Paraskoviivka and Nia Kostantinivka. Between Solotka and Volodymyrivka, Russian forces carried out one of the largest armored assaults of the war in an attempt to advance on Vodyane. The Ukrainian 79th Air Assault Brigade was attacked by 11 tanks, including improvised armored total tanks, 45 armored vehicles, a rare BMPT Terminator tank support combat vehicle, 12 motorcycles, and 200 light infantry troops on foot. The hours-long assault started at dawn and came from multiple directions. Russian forces never reached the forwardmost line of friendly troops, attacked by long-range weapons and bumbling into minefields. Russian forces suffered catastrophic losses as the attack failed, with drone operators eliminating light infantry troops as they scattered and searched for cover. Here is my Theaterwide update. The Khortytsia Operational Strategic Group reported that in the Kharkiv Oblast, a dispute between soldiers resulted in a fratricide incident. 3 service members were killed and 4 were wounded. The injured were transported to a military medical center and are hospitalized in critical condition. A criminal investigation has been opened. The Defense Intelligence Directorate of Ukraine launched a massive cyber attack against Russia, impacting online banking access and retail sales terminal transactions for Sberbank, Alfa-Bank, Raiffeisenbank and VTB. The attack also knocked the faster payment system and the national payment card system offline for most clients. Cellular internet access for telcos Beeline, Megafon, Tele2 and Rostelecom were also hit. Russian officials acknowledged the cyber attack, with the DIU mocking the situation, claiming they were only helping Russia abandon, quote, hostile liberal values by blocking the internet. Olena Vysotska, Deputy Minister of Justice, reported that 6,094 male convicts and 7 women have signed contracts with the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and 3,823 are in training or already deployed. The main directorate of the National Police of Ukraine arrested 2 officials from a territorial recruitment center in Ternopil Oblast for accepting bribes of $5,000 to $15,000 to disqualify individuals from military service. If convicted, they face up to 10 years in prison. The pair is also accused of blocking deferments to eligible individuals. Up to 150 men were given illegal medical deferments or improperly mobilized. German defense company Rheinmetall has received an order from Kyiv to break ground on an ammunition factory to be built in Ukraine. Construction could start by the fall and is expected to take 24 months. The new factory will be capable of making up to 100,000 NATO 155mm artillery rounds and powder charges per year. The European Union ambassadors approved a macro-financial aid package of over $4.5 billion to Ukraine for financial stability and to maintain the functions of the country's public administration. The EU Council will now have to approve the package, which is unlikely with Hungary acting as the rotating president. Keep listening. I have an exclusive report about oil imports to Hungary.
You're listening to the Malcontent News Russia-Ukraine War podcast. Our team of journalists, researchers, and analysts is funded by readers, listeners, and viewers just like you. To support independent journalism, please consider becoming a patron. You can find us on patreon.com/malcontentnews.
The Human Rights and War Crimes section of the Russia-Ukraine War Report podcast sometimes contains graphic descriptions of war crimes, human rights abuses, torture, gender-based violence, and violence against children. Some listeners may find these accounts disturbing. Today's report does not contain any graphic content. In the city of Kharkiv, a Russian Iskander-M missile hit the offices of the Swiss Mine Action Fund, or FSD, which is an NGO removing landmines from areas liberated in 2022. The group's offices were heavily damaged, and 6 vehicles were damaged too. No members of the NGO were killed or injured. In a press release, the organization did not indicate who fired the missile, stating, quote, "We call upon all parties to respect international humanitarian law and ensure the safety and protection of humanitarian workers and civilians." Unquote. Russia has started running online and television ads targeting 15 and 16-year-olds to transfer to Alabuga Polytechnical Institute in the Special Economic Zone in the Republic of Tatarstan. Students who have completed the 9th grade are asked to consider joining Stalin's Falcons, no kidding, that is the name, to learn how to program and assemble combat drones for the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Alabuga is one of the main assembly points for Shahed 136 one-way drones, and previously the facility was deceiving foreign nationals with the promise of a technical degree. Instead, they were pressed into the assembly of drones. Russia is increasingly pushing teenagers to join the war effort, although it is unclear if this is due to a demographic crisis or the militarization of society. Could it be both? The use of child labor, which is defined as individuals under 18 years old, in defense production, even if they volunteer, is a violation of international humanitarian law. It's time to travel to the land of Mobiks, Mobilization and Mir. A car bomb exploded in Moscow, critically wounding Andrei Targashov, a soldier with the main Defense Intelligence Directorate of the Ministry of Defense, that's the GRU Psychological Warfare Unit 45807, and his wife. Multiple sources misidentified Targashov as the deputy commander of the transmitting radio center of the 89th Satellite Communications Center of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation. The bomb tore Targashov's feet off and injured his wife, Maya Targashova. A Russian citizen suspected of the assassination attempt, Yevgeny Serebryakov, was arrested in Bodrum, Turkey, on an Interpol warrant. He has been charged with the illegal acquisition and storage of weapons and the murder of 2 more persons in a generally dangerous manner. It is unclear why Serebryakov has been charged with murder, while Russian state media reports Targashov and his wife are in hospital. The Russian State Duma passed the law on guardhouses, which enables commanders to convict Russian soldiers of 20 different crimes with no trial. When signed into law, Russian troops who have any internet-enabled device capable of transmitting geolocation data can be found guilty of a, quote, gross disciplinary offense. Chairman of the State Duma Defense Committee Andrei Kartapolov said that the law provides an exception for combat work. Multiple Russian bloggers openly condemned the new laws. Alexei Zhivov wrote, quote, "The new norm will allow any complainant or petitioner to be arrested by law. It does not matter at all whether he is right or not." Russian blogger Ilya Mersh, better known as Older Than Edda, was more direct, quote, "After passing such laws, one of the deputies, and there are whole generals there, should be sent to the regiment's command post and let him try to command fire missions without these gadgets." If the law is strictly enforced, it could be catastrophic to our ability to assess the location of the line of conflict accurately, the combat power of Russian units and verify claims made by the Russian Ministry of Defense and propagandists. State Duma Deputy Lieutenant General Viktor Sobolev asserted during a meeting of the Defense Committee that the law of God houses doesn't go far enough. Quote, "We must go further, create penal companies as was the case during the Great Patriotic War, and penal battalions for those who seriously violate military discipline." Sobolev proposed staffing the battalions with soldiers who commit gross disciplinary offenses, insubordination, drunks and drug users, refuseniks and cowards. After 29 months of the expanded war of aggression against Ukraine, recruitment from penal colonies is declining due to a shrinking number of military-capable convicts. Russian mercenary mill blogger Gonzo posted a recruitment advertisement for the 7th St. George Assault Brigade of private military company Redoubt. A salary of $2,560 a month is offered for a 6-month contract and allegedly a guarantee to go home. There was no mention of a zinc coffin. Applications by men with HIV and hepatitis will be accepted. In occupied Kherson Oblast, occupation officials revealed a memorial for 23 Russian soldiers killed on June 17, 2023, by a Storm Shadow strike on an ammunition depot in Rykove. The dead included 3 majors – Andrei Grebennikov, Mikhail Lesnych, and Alexei Orlov. If there is any video we link to that is worth the 7-day free trial, this one is it. Multiple Russian state media agencies highlighted a total tank built using an increasingly rare T-80 MBT, showcasing its numerous advantages, including a functional main gun, mine roller, and better visibility. The improvised armored vehicle was named Родной, that translates to native or blood relative, and less than 24 hours later it was destroyed by the Ukrainian Boulevard drone unit. We'll link to the video in today's sitrep, and there is a link in the podcast description. Russian state media agency Kommersant reported that the VKS was forced to ground 5 Il-76 MD-90A heavy military transports due to substandard bearings being installed in the landing gear. A criminal investigation into the leaders of the Balashikha foundry and mechanical plant has been opened. Documents show that BFMP used forged certification documents to deliver bearings made by an outside third party to the VKS from 2017 to 2022. We don't normally include the European threat section of our sitrep in the podcast, but I want to share our investigative report into Hungarian oil imports. Hungary is accused of supporting Russia in its dispute over crude oil shipments through the Druzhba pipeline. On May 17, 2023, Hungarian refiner MOL Group signed a 1-year deal with JANAF, the operator of the Adriatic pipeline in Croatia. Prior to Russia expanding its war of aggression, contracts show that JANAF transported 500,000 metric tons of crude a year to Hungary. The new deal increased the volume to 2.9 million tons. Then, on April 11th of this year, JANAF signed a new contract to provide 2.2 million tons of crude through December 31st. 2 days ago, when asking the European Union for mediation about Russian oil shipments, the Foreign Minister of Hungary, Petr Szijjártó, said that his nation receives about 2 million tons of crude through the Ukrainian Druzhba pipeline, about 40% of all imports. That claim aligns with publicly available consumption data, with Hungary using approximately 135,000 barrels of oil a day. When you do the math, the 2023 contract with JANAF created a surplus of 2.4 million tons from May 2023 to April 2024, as shipments through the Druzhba pipeline continued. The new April contract covers the closure of the Druzhba pipeline and creates an annual excess of almost 1 million tons through the rest of the year. Hungary doesn't need crude from Lukoil. Why is Viktor Orban pushing back so hard? In June 2022, Orban used state of emergency powers to implement a windfall tax on MOL Group, collecting $542 million in new taxes while taking almost all net profits from MOL. In 2023, Orban used his emergency powers to bypass parliament and changed the taxes targeting MOL for a second time. While the changes lowered taxes on the price difference between Brent and Ural, it added a new 2.8% windfall tax. The changes in tax structure and the desire to import cheaper Russian crude are due to Hungary's spiraling national debt and were implemented during a period of sweeping tax increases. The loss of Russian crude, which is price capped at $60 a barrel, is a hit to Hungary's tax revenue because it reduces MOL Group's profits. That's what the dispute is really about. There's a lot more coverage of other events across Europe as Russia conducts an increasingly aggressive hybrid war. Subscribers get more, and there's information in the podcast description. Wrapping things up today with economic news from Russia, where everything is going to plan. During a meeting with the new head of the Russian Accounts Chamber, Yuri Kovalchuk, autocrat Vladimir Putin called for austerity. Quote, "Russia has revenues but no money, neither spare nor reserve money. Therefore, I am counting on you to monitor financial discipline with the utmost care and not to miss anything criminal. This one is going to hurt anyone who stands for a BRICS currency and believes cryptocurrency will change the world." The State Duma approved a law that would enable Russian officials to ban cryptocurrency mining on a regional basis. Pending approval by autocrat Putin, their power to ban crypto mining in the 83 federal subjects of Russia will start on September 1st. Last week, Putin blamed regional power outages and rolling blackouts on crypto miners. Is it crypto miners, or is it because Russia is broke? Russian state media agency Kommersant claimed that the Ministry of Energy of Russia is in the early stages of considering expanding the export ban on refined oil products to include diesel. The price of diesel on the St. Petersburg exchange has increased by 20%, and last year there were widespread fuel shortages during Russia's harvest season. And finally, is there another purge starting? This time among economists. The State Duma Council voted to dismiss Pavel Zavalny from his position as chairman of the Russian Lower House's Energy Committee. No reason was given. In November 2023, Zavalny warned that financial losses for Russian energy company Gazprom could reach $11.5 billion by 2025, saying, quote, "There will be no experts, but the costs remain." Well, I guess getting fired is better than falling out of a window. And that's what we know. Your support of my home, Ukraine, helps us make history and protect the future for all.
You've been listening to the Malcontent News Russia-Ukraine War podcast. To help keep us independent, please consider providing financial support by becoming a patron. Want on-demand news in your hand? Download the Google News app and make Malcontent News one of your favorites to receive breaking news updates. Thank you for listening.